The Harrison family boardroom hadn't changed in 30 years. The same mahogany table dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs that had witnessed decades of deals, betrayals and family politics. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated images of success and unity. I noticed I wasn't in any of them. I'm Sarah Harrison, though the family rarely used my name anymore to them. I was just the disappointment, the cautionary tale they whispered about at charity galas and country club brunches. Poor Thomas Harrison's youngest daughter. They'd say the one who walked away from the family business today's emergency family meeting had been called to discuss the company's future, though I knew things were far worse than they realised. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, watching my relatives posture and pin, none of them aware that their precious Harrison Industries was already mine. Uncle James stood at the head of the table, his custom suit unable to hide his growing punch. "The numbers don't lie," he announced. Pointing to the projection screen last quarter was our worst in 20 years. "The board is getting nervous." My cousin William, who'd been handed a VP position straight out of college, scoffed. "The board works for us. We're Harrisons. If only they knew that the board now worked for me through a complex web of shell companies and proxy votes." Phoenix Enterprises. My company had spent the last 3 years quietly acquiring Harrison Industries stock, gaining controlling interest while hiding behind layers of corporate anonymity. "The tech division is hemorrhaging money," my sister Elizabeth added, not bothering to look up from her phone. She'd been made Chief Innovation Officer last year despite having no background in technology. "We should probably sell it off." I hid a smile. The tech division was actually the company's most valuable asset. They were just too stubborn to modernize it properly. Under my leadership at Phoenix, we developed the software that would make it worth billions. "What are you smirking at?" Uncle James suddenly turned his attention to me. "Find something amusing about our situation." The room fell silent. Even Elizabeth looked up from her phone. "I was just thinking about solutions," I said carefully. Uncle James's face reamed. "Solutions from you, the girl who walked away from a director position to play startup founder." 5 years ago, I'd refused the role of marketing director, a position created purely to keep me occupied while my cousins ran the actual business. Instead, I'd used my inheritance to start Phoenix Enterprises, focusing on digital transformation and strategic acquisitions. I have some experience in corporate restructuring. I offered, mildly. William laughed. "Experience running your little tech company from a WeWork office. This is a billion-dollar corporation. Sarah, leave the real business to people who understand it." I thought about my real office, the top 3 floors of the city's most prestigious business tower. The WeWork space they mocked was just a front, a way to keep them underestimating me. While I built something they couldn't imagine, my father sat silently watching the exchange. He'd stepped down as CEO last year, handing control to Uncle James, despite my warnings about his outdated management style. Dad had always been weak when it came to his older brother, too willing to keep peace in the family at any cost. Sarah's company has had some success. Dad ventured, weakly, "Maybe we should hear her out success." Uncle James snorted. "Thomas, your daughter plays business owner while the rest of us manage a real corporate empire. She's worthless to this family and you know it?" The word hung in the air, worthless. How many times had they used that word to describe me over the years, when I questioned their outdated practices, when I suggested modernizing our technology, when I dared to strike out on my own, instead of accepting the role they'd chosen for me? Elizabeth rolled her eyes. "Can we focus on actual solutions? I have a lunch reservation at Lusk." I checked my watch discreetly. In exactly 4 minutes, everything would change. Phoenix's acquisition of Harrison Industries would be announced to the board, followed by an emergency press release. The family would learn that their empire had been sold right out from under them. "The tech division isn't the problem," I said, earning glares from around the table. "Your entire business model is outdated. You're losing market share because you refuse to innovate. How dare you? Uncle James slammed his hand on the table. I've run this company for the past year with the same principles your grandfather established. We don't need your Silicon Valley nonsense here. I thought about my grandfather. The original Harrison innovator, he'd built this company through bold moves and forward thinking. Everything the family now rejected in the name of tradition, those principles are exactly why you're failing. I replied calmly. The market has changed. Technology has evolved, but Harrison Industries is stuck in the past because you're too proud to adapt enough. Uncle James roared, his face purple with rage. You lost the right to criticize this company when you walked away from it. You're worthless to this family, worthless to this business. Just then, his secretary burst through the door, her face pale. Sir, Mr. Harrison, the board, they're calling an emergency meeting. Phoenix Enterprises just bought controlling interest in Harrison Industries. The room exploded in chaos. William dropped his Mont Blanc pen. Elizabeth's phone clattered to the table. Uncle James stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Phoenix Enterprises, my father whispered. But that's high company, I finished for him, standing slowly, though I prefer to call it by its full name. Phoenix Global Enterprises. We're the largest digital transformation firm in the country, specializing in modernizing outdated companies, exactly like Harrison Industries. The silence was absolute years of dismissal, of mockery, of being called worthless. All of it crystallized in this moment of absolute victory. That's impossible. William stammered. Phoenix is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You just have that little startup. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the Phoenix Enterprises website, and projected it onto the screen. There was my photo listed as founder and CEO. There were our acquisition records, our global offices, our market valuations. The little startup was a cover, I explained. Enjoying their shocked expressions, it let me build something extraordinary while you were all too busy mocking me to notice. Every time you dismissed me as worthless, I bought more shares. Every time you laughed at my little company, I grew stronger. Elizabeth had gone pale. The tech division will be completely restructured, I confirmed, along with everything else. The board meeting in 10 minutes will confirm me as the new CEO. The press release goes out at noon. Uncle James finally found his voice. You can't do this. We're family, I laughed softly. Was it family when you called me worthless? When you dismissed every idea I had? When you turned this company into a playground for your entitled children while running it into the ground? My father stood up shakily. Sir, please, we can talk about this. We could have talked years ago. I cut him off. You could have listened when I warned you about Uncle James, when I tried to show you how to save this company. But you chose your roles. The dismissive uncle, the weak father, the mocking cousins. Now I'm choosing mine. The secretary was still standing by the door, clutching a stack of papers. Sir, the press is already calling. They want comments on the acquisition. Uncle James sank into his chair, all his bluster evaporating comments. Comments on how my worthless niece outsmarted us all. Oh, I'm not worthless anymore, I smiled. I'm your boss, the room erupted again. Elizabeth started crying. William was yelling into his phone trying to reach his lawyer, and Uncle James looked like he might have a stroke. But I wasn't done, not even close. I walked to the head of the table, took Uncle James's seat, and opened my laptop. Now shall we discuss the restructuring plan? I have some ideas about the tech division. The family that had dismissed me for years sat in stunned silence as I began outlining my vision for their company. My company, now the worthless daughter, had become the most powerful person in the room, and we were just getting started. The next few hours passed in a blur of chaos and revelation. The board meeting was brief and decisive. My ownership stake left them no choice but to confirm me, as the press release went out exactly at noon, and within minutes Harrison Industries' stock price jumped 15% the market. It seemed approved of the change in leadership. My family, however, was falling apart. This is illegal. Uncle James shouted, pacing the boardroom after the meeting. You must have manipulated something broken. Some law, everything was perfectly legal. I interrupted calmly. Maybe if you'd spent more time actually reading financial reports instead of bragging at country clubs, you'd have noticed Phoenix buying up shares over the last 3 years. Elizabeth was frantically texting her lawyer friends, but I knew it was useless. I'd made sure every aspect of the takeover was ironclad. Your position as Chief Innovation Officer is terminated by the way I told her. Along with William's VP role, we'll be bringing in people who actually understand technology and business operations. You can't fire us. William exploded. We're Harrison, so am I reminded him. The Harrison you all called worthless. How does it feel to be fired by someone who's worthless? My father sat quietly in the corner, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Where did we go wrong? He muttered. How did we not see this coming? You saw what you wanted to see. I answered, a rebellious daughter who refused to play by your rules. It never occurred to you that I was playing a different game entirely. Just then, my assistant Catherine entered the room. Miss Harrison, the transition team is ready, and the auditors would like to begin their review. Uncle James went pale. Auditors. Of course, I smiled. We need to understand exactly how much damage your leadership has done, those country club memberships charged to the company, the personal expenses hidden as business costs, the questionable loans to family members. I'm sure the SE will be very interested. You would destroy your own family. Elizabeth whispered. You never treated me like family. I replied, you treated me like an embarrassment, a failure, someone who needed to be hidden away or controlled. Now you can experience what it feels like to be powerless. My phone buzzed. The first wave of changes was ready to be implemented. Catherine, please, escort my relatives to security. They'll need to clear out their offices immediately. This isn't over, Uncle James growled, but his voice shook. The family won't stand for this. The family doesn't have a choice. Phoenix owns 58% of Harrison Industries. Now I own your jobs, your futures, and every secret you've tried to hide. As security arrived to escort them out, I turned to my father. You can stay Dad as an advisor if you're willing to actually listen this time. He looked at me for a long moment, seeing me clearly. Perhaps for the first time. When did you become so powerful? I always was. You just never noticed. The next week was a whirlwind of changes. The old Harrison Industries logo was replaced with a modern design. The tech division, far from being sold off, became our central focus. I brought in a team of innovators and digital experts, people chosen for talent rather than family connections. The family, predictably, didn't go quietly. Uncle James tried to rally the other shareholders, only to discover that most had already sold to Phoenix. Elizabeth attempted to leak damaging information to the press, but her stories of the worthless Harrison daughter who ruined the family business were overshadowed by Phoenix's soaring stock price and innovative new projects. William tried a different approach, showing up at my office with an olive branch. Come on, Sarah, he wheedled. We're cousins, surely we can work something out. I've learned my lesson. I leaned back in my chair, his old chair actually, and studied him. Have you? What lesson would that be? That I underestimated you, that we all did. But we can fix this. Make it a real family company. Again, it is a real family company, I replied, just not the family you wanted it to be. Your position has been filled by someone qualified. I suggest you update your resume. He left in tears. Another first in Harrison family history, the audit revealed exactly what I'd suspected: years of financial mismanagement, nepotism, and hidden corruption. Uncle James had been funneling company money into his personal accounts. Elizabeth had hired her friends as consultants, with massive retainers. William had been trading. Company stock based on inside information the SEC will want to investigate. My legal team advised, give them everything I instructed. Every document, every transaction, every hidden account. Let them see exactly how the mighty Harrison family did. Business? My father, watching from his reduced role as advisor, seemed to age years and weeks. They'll go to jail, he said quietly. They made their choices, I replied, just like they chose to call me worthless. The fallout was spectacular. Uncle James faced criminal charges for embezzlement. Elizabeth and William were banned from trading securities. The Harrison family name, once synonymous with old money privilege, became associated with corruption and failure. And through it all, Phoenix Rosa stock price doubled in the first month as investors recognized the potential I'd seen years ago. The tech division, properly funded and staffed, launched innovations that put us years ahead of competitors. The company culture transformed from an old boy club to a meritocracy where talent and creativity thrived. 6 months after the takeover, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly reports. The view from the top floor was spectacular, but I wasn't looking at the city. I was looking at a photo on my desk the last family Christmas before I left Harrison Industries. Everyone smiling, successful, proud, and me standing at the edge, already planning my rebellion. Catherine entered with more documents to sign. Your uncle's sentencing is tomorrow, she reminded me. Will you attend? I thought about it. Uncle James would stand before a judge, his reputation in tatters, his arrogance finally broken. The family would be there watching another Harrison fall. No, I decided I have a company to run. She nodded and turned to leave, then paused. The new family photos for the boardroom arrived. Would you like me to hang them? Take down all the old ones? I instructed. This isn't a family company anymore. It's something better that evening. As I worked late in my office, my father knocked on the door. He looked tired, humbled, but there was something else in his expression. Pride, maybe finally I underestimated you. He said simply, you all did. Can you ever forgive us? I considered the question. Thinking of all the years of dismissal and contempt forgiveness isn't the point. Dad, this was never about revenge. It was about proving that success doesn't have to look like what this family imagined. It was about building something better than what you tried to force me to be. He nodded slowly. You certainly did that. The company, it's extraordinary now. It always could have been. You just couldn't see past your own traditions to recognize it. He turned to leave, then stopped for what it's worth. I'm proud of you, even if I don't understand how you became this person. I was always this person, I said quietly. You just never saw me. After he left, I stood at the window, watching the city lights come alive. Somewhere out there, my relatives were preparing for Uncle James's sentencing. Their lives forever changed by the worthless daughter they'd mocked. Elizabeth was selling her penthouse to pay legal fees. William was interviewing for entry-level positions, learning humility the hard way. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about the company, about its future, about all the possibilities that opened up when you stopped trying to preserve the past and started building something new. The worthless daughter had become the most valuable. Harrison of all, and she was just getting started. Catherine's voice came through the intercom. Your 7 p.m. is here, the Silicon Valley Venture Capital team. I smiled, straightening my jacket, time to show another group of old money traditionalists what the future looked like. Send them in, I said, and Catherine have the old family photos sent to my relatives. They'll need the memories more than I do. The photos would arrive at their reduced circumstances. Elizabeth's downgraded apartment, William's mother's guest room, Uncle James's attorney's office. A reminder of what they'd lost, what they'd thrown away by underestimating the daughter they dismissed. But I wouldn't be in those photos anymore. I had new pictures to take, new successes to document, new traditions to build. After all, success is the best revenge.